Hey everybody, it's Brandon once again, and I've got some special guests here for my channel, and we are going to be talking about John Carter of Mars. So I am here with Bert Isla and Jeff Mejia. Hope I got that name right. Right, Jeff? I guess you get that a lot. And we are going to be talking about John Carter of Mars. And so what we've got is an audio series Kickstarter that's going on. And I didn't know really anything about it. And I wanted to, of course, with Bert, he got it with me. Let's let people know that there is a role-playing game element that's involved in this Kickstarter. So, Bert, if you would like to introduce yourself and let people know more about you, then we'll go to Jeff afterwards.
Sure. Bert Isla. I'm probably more well known these days for doing layout and editing for a whole host of different companies. A lot of good big game products, Weird Frontiers. I've had my hand in just every one of those products. Reed's Umerica setting, the Gonzo post-apocalyptic dungeon crawl classic setting. Had my hand in that. Of course, Jeff's very own Dicey Tales. Did the layout for that, and just been working for a whole host of companies for a very long time. I'm in my 50s, and I've been gaming since I was 13.
What game did you start with?
I found the Zero Edition in a Sakar box, Dungeons and Dragons, that my father had picked up when he was in the Navy. He had no idea what it was. He just went to a convention because he did wargaming, and he picked it up there, and I found it in his Navy steamer trunk.
That's great. That's a real treasure. That's a real find. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
never leave my grasp.
And Jeff, introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Yeah, Jeff Mejia. I officially, I guess, in this sense, I'm the president of Dicey Tales Productions, and I am the president and everything else in Dicey Tales Productions, besides what Bert does for me as far as the manuscript and the editing, and we have artists and stuff like that. But yeah. That's what we do, Dicey Tales, and Bert got in touch with me and told me about this situation, and that he invited me on, and I'm just happy to be here.
That's great. That's great. And what was your first game, or how were you introduced to the hobby?
Actually, I was just talking about this to a friend of mine. I was in the back of English class in freshman year. And these guys were next to me, and they were talking about fighting a vampire. And they were so mad because they were only second and third level. And like, what is he thinking having us fight a vampire? You're a monk. I'm a magic user. We can't fight a vampire. And, and I'm like kind of sitting there and I'm listening to these guys, and they're going back and forth about it. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And they turned and he looked and he goes, don't you play D&D? And I'm like, no, never heard of it. What is it? And he told Dungeons and Dragons. And he goes, come on over. We'll play tonight, or this, after school. Went after school, and took me about an hour and a half to roll up a character. He died in the first room with a goblin crossbow bolt. The one, The Search of the Unknown. And I'm like, well, this is a dumb game, but I was hooked. That point forward.
I guess that's all it takes sometimes, So yeah, that's great. That's great. So this Kickstarter, tell the viewers exactly what it is, like what it's got involved in it, who's involved in it. And I think we've just got a couple more days to go. I think it's just, is it 4 days left?
September the 18th is when it ends.
Yeah, Bert, let us know what exactly is the Kickstarter.
Well, it is for the audio dramatization, starting with the first book in the John Carter series, Princess of Mars. And it's so a dramatization versus just an audiobook. Of course, you've got multiple voice actors, musical score, sound effects, that sort of thing. It's like it's a production. Anyone used to listen to old time radio channels on the radio where they would have these, productions very similar. So they've got some big names, Sean Patrick Flannery, Bruce Boxleiter. from Tron and Babylon 5 fame. And apparently, now that I'm looking at their Kickstarter, they have locked in Tom Baker.
That's awesome.
For the Doctor Who fans out there. Yeah, so it's a big push. It is licensed by the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate. And the Kickstarter has, and where we come in on this, a number of little fan tchotchkes that you can pick up. Folks that know the John Carter lore, the Woola, the Martian, very faithful hound that John becomes attached to. There is a Woola plush. There are poster maps. There are just a lot of things that you can pick up in appreciation if you're a big John Carter pulp fans from that time. And our part in this is there is a small role-playing, we'll call it a supplement or book that you can use with your favorite role-playing system. It's geared towards 5e OSR games that use the core of 5e, your normal stats and D20 rolls, as well as Pathfinder 2nd edition. It's going to include an adventure and an appendix where if your judge wants to continue on with the game after the adventure is done, we'll give you enough there to keep it rolling. Ideas on what happens if you bring characters in from already going campaigns and how their powers might change on Barsoom, the Mars of John Carter. Some of the notable, of course, we'll have stats for John Carter, and the most of the big names from the book will be in there. A little monster area, a little technology era. Here on the screen, I've got like a table of contents of basically what's going to be in it there, and we'll show off a few more pages of what we got set up so far. So that's what it is. And as I said, there's a bunch of cool stuff in there. They made some Martian coins that are very cool. So if you're familiar with challenge coins from the military, the big, heavy, weighty, they've made some for this as well.
That's great. And there's also like the book you can get, but you can get the book also in Barsoomian. Is that what it is?
Yes. Using the Barsoomian alphabet.
Wow. Seems like you need some sort of decoder or something. I guess you could do that if you're going to get both of them. You could kind of go, and I used to do that, try to, if there was something that might be a code or something, try to break it,
Yes. Yeah. If you ever did the old decodering thing as a kid,
that's very cool.
The entire novel that way.
Do you know how this came to be? Like I someone maybe that doesn't know about John Carter of Mars, like they have their estate. And so do you know if there's any, like what the communication was between not just the people that are doing the audio series, but as well as with you guys? Like, how did they say, hey, let's put a role-playing game in this too?
Well, one of the folks, Michael, that's attached to Pocket Universe Productions, who are the guys that are doing the auto drama of this, is a big RPG guy. Like he, back in the time of Roll Aids, if you remember that from Mayfair Games, he's still into gaming and just thought it would be a great tie-in because, I mean, come on, pulp adventuring, sword and sandal. I mean, it's made for role-playing games. It really is. Just that whole adventurous attitude. And if you don't mind, Brandon, just let me throw something in there I completely forgot to talk about for role-playing games. So fans of your show probably know that the Modifius did a John Carter of Mars role-playing game. And you cannot officially buy those anymore. But you can pick them up in the Kickstarter. So Modifius has kind of joined in and said, hey, we've got some leftover inventory. The Edgar Rice Burroughs estate said we can do it through this. So you can pick up those books if you missed it when they were for sale in the normal retail channels.
That's a great inclusion. And I was going to ask you about that because obviously I knew about that game. So that's really neat that you get to have that too, should you want to expand it out even more. And that's another question I had is, do you know if this is a one and done thing or will there be more?
So for the role-playing portion, Jeff and I, and I'm gonna throw this out here on the bottom of the screen real quick. This is who's actually doing the role-playing portion of this. Stephen Bean, you folks might know him as well. He has been the author of many Weird Frontiers, DCC, Goodman Game products, as well as many more. Joan Troyer has also done some DCC products. So this is us. This is who put it together. Unfortunately, though, this is a one-time thing. Because there is another well-known company out there that is producing a full-scale new John Carter-based role-playing game. They have the rights to that. This is a special dispensation we've been given for this Kickstarter. So it is a one-of-a-time thing. PDF and print copies can be picked up in this Kickstarter, but not outside of it.
Gotcha. So it is only to this Kickstarter.
Yep.
Okay. And then what about the art? Because art obviously plays a big part. There's some great art for John Carter throughout the years. What can you tell us about the art?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you can see Jeff's background, you can see that Jeff is the comic book guy. So let me pump that over to Jeff there to talk about that.
Well, basically, it's going to be classic art. One of the best well-known, versions of John Carter in popular, especially during the 70s. At the time, right now, we can't talk about it in that context. We can't tell you who the company was, but fans of comic books can pretty much narrow it down who did John Carter in the 70s. And when you take a look at the art that we have available, you'll see it's classic.
That's great.
There's a few panels right there for a sample.
Love it. Looks great. I really like the I told you that too, Bert. I like stuff busting out of panels, I like that.
Yeah.
I like comic books. And
when I do layout, I really don't like stagnant art that stays in its little box. I like the art to jump off the page whenever I can manage to do it. So
definitely. So how is it that y'all got the call for this? Like, what was the connection? And obviously you guys are big John Carter of Mars fans, I would assume. So, and I know that's been a lot of projects are like that, where some people really have some real passion, love for the IPs, and but how did that come to be that you guys got on board?
Well, Stephen Bean actually got us together. We just finished working on Last Stop Perdition for Weird Frontiers together. He was a writer of that. I was his editor and layout guy. He was contacted by Pocket Universe Productions. How that story happened, how he was the handoff to that, I don't know. Stephen might have known someone up there. He's done a lot of work. So his name might have just been something that rose to the top over there. Steve contacted me, and I got in touch with Michael over at Pocket Universe, and he said, like, hey, can you get a team together to do this? Do you know some writers? Do you know some folks? And hey, naturally, Jeff came first thing to my mind, because Jeff's a huge pulp guy with his Dicey Tales, and just has an amazing store of knowledge in that noggin of his about pulp, all things pulp. I was also the editor for Joan Troyer for her adventure Blackest Friday, forthcoming in the America universe for DCC, and I thought she would give a great voice to this as well. So between all of us, we wrote our editing, and I'll be doing the layout for it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So what, Jeff, you say that you like pulp a lot. That's kind of what your thing is. What is it about John Carter? Why? I mean, I know it was written so long ago. Why has it endured so much? Why is there so much passion behind it? If you could let us know, like, your own thoughts about that, like your own feelings about why you enjoy it so much.
Oh, because for me, it envelops a lot of different genres in itself. It's in pulp, and pulp, as you know, it can go from Buck Rogers all the way back to Conan. It's all pulp, everything in the middle, from Conan to the Crusades to the Wild West to the turn of the century adventures. And then we get into modern horror, and modern being like 20th century horror with Cthulhu and other types of stuff, all the way up to the detectives. Dashiell Hammett wrote, he was a pulp writer. Louis L'Amour in the Westerns was a pulp writer, and Edgar Rice Burroughs not only created John Carter, but he was also responsible for Tarzan. So, it was a way of connecting all of it together And John Carter does it wonderfully because he basically is a post Civil War hero. He's like almost like an eternal champion, which Michael Moorcock used and basically coined the phrase. Um, but he's a champion that can go from post Civil War to the futuristic Mars setting with skyships and astral projection, and yet radium rifles and sword fights, still fighting monsters. There's just so much to love out of this because it's all over the place yet unified.
I was going to say the unifying thing. So that is collectively a very broad area of history, right? So the unifying thing is what gives it the name pulps, because these were the writers in the late 1890s to the 50s, middle of the 50s, maybe even early 60s. It was cheap entertainment. They were written on pulp paper, very cheap paper, in a lot of magazines that came out. H.P. Lovecraft printed in Weird Tales and a few of those. So that's the binding thing, is these authors who wrote for not a lot of money, but could write prolifically into these magazines that were very cheap during periods of time when people didn't have a lot of disposable income, but you could afford your dime novel, you could afford your pulp fiction. And so that's the binding agent as far as, history is concerned.
Gotcha. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking about it, and it's like, it seems to me back then with the pulp and how it was kind of like probably a little like underground a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How it allowed them to kind of not have the spotlight on them when they probably deserved it, but it allowed them a little bit be free. When I think of H.P. Lovecraft, it was just kind of like he was just kind of free to do and just kind of bring forth what he had in his mind, to the page. And so I wonder if it's like, it's like, thank God that they actually, even though they might have didn't get paid what they should have, that allowed them to have that freedom artistically to create the stuff that they did. So
yeah, and the authors were very prolific because like the more you wrote, the more you got paid. I mean, this gave rise to like Doc Savage, The Shadow, because those were serial. You could just churn those out and make more and more adventures based on those characters.
Yeah, a lot of these novelists, they cut their teeth on the pulps. They went on to fame independently on their own. Robert Bloch, all these guys. And the pulps offered them a way, especially when they were younger, to express what they were thinking of. And there were pulps regarding everything, just about everything,
even romance. Like, yeah, it wasn't all just for the guys either. There were romance pulps.
There's even a whole underground pulp thing, going on, and so it's very much there. It was very much a part of our history. It went through the Great Depression, and a lot of the soldiers in World War II had pulp magazines in their back pockets.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of like an institution, and these men, it's great to see all, after all these years, we still get stuff from them. We're not tired of it. It's just, we just want more. And I think that's how it's going to kind of always be. Did you guys have any challenges with working on this? And what I mean by that is like, you've got John Carter of Mars. You've got, what is it, 11 books? Am I wrong? I don't know. I think it's 11. Like, how do you go? Like, what angle do you go at that? Like when it comes to what you want to put in there, because I'm certain there's got to be a lot that you just couldn't put in there.
No, honestly, we just kind of all talked first. Like, what would you like to see in this adventure? Like, give it. I think I went through and asked everybody, what scene do you want in this adventure? Oh, we want a chase. Oh, we want, we want a war. We want, Jeff wanted a bit of romance thrown in there. So yeah, we just kind of sat down. It's like, okay, well, how many acts do we want? We want four major scenes and a finish up scene. Okay. All right. Well, let's start working out each of these things that each one of us would like to see in it. With the clear, I guess, path that we wanted this to be very much in the pulp tradition of like, it's action. Well, I mean, H.P. Lovecraft, of course, was very noted for his long discourses as well. But I mean, even when he does get to the action, it's very immediate, right? So we wanted to keep that immediacy. And with the art that we're using from the 70s comic books, it is definitely that way. The line art, it's very bold, it's very action oriented, and so we kept that in mind as we're writing it. We, not a lot of lulls in it. It just kind of hits you one right after the other as it goes. And yeah, so it's very much a collaborative writing experience. And then, I play tested it last Sunday on my channel. We're going to smooth out some things I felt were a little rough for the GM. As far as challenges, the scope of it changed quite a bit from when we first got the call to do this, and how page count, what systems we were going to represent. Page count is relatively small, so we wanted to cover as many role-playing systems as we could. This book is not a system to itself. Let's start off with that. It is assuming you've already got your favorite tabletop system that you play with your group. Okay, 5e OSR games that are based on D20 mechanics and largely stay to the 5e standard of your strength, dex, wisdom, how you do checks, etc. A little later into it, folks at Pathfinder got interested in the project. So it's like, hey, Pathfinder 2 is probably right behind D&D 5e is the next largest fan base out there. So, okay, we'll do Pathfinder 2nd edition. And of course, we already talked about the Modifius 2D20 system. Well, they've already got a full system, but we will give a little bit of guidance in our writing as to how you could do it in 2D20. Like if we say, this is a challenge in 5e and OSR, in Pathfinder, it's a difficulty class, right? 2D20 does that a little differently. So, we'll just give a little bit of guidelines in the text as how you could do it with 2D20, but we're not going to provide full stats for that because you can pick up the full system if you'd like, but
Sure.
You could play our adventure in that system if you would like as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know what type of characters you can play in this?
Well, we've written it so that there's a couple things you can do. It's meant for low-level characters. If you're doing something that has a 0 level or first level, and you can be in a fantasy campaign or in a modern or futuristic campaign, it doesn't really matter. You're brought to Barsoom. Folks that know the story, John Carter is not bodily brought to Mars. He is almost like a spirit transfer. His, it's what did you call it, Jeff? It's I can't think of the name of it. Like spirit walking, or say that again. Sorry.
Astrally projection.
Astrally projecting. Right. So his body is left behind. So your characters would be much the same. Your characters, if you're already in an ongoing campaign, let's say something happens in the campaign where you're trapped, and you end a session with all the characters going to 0 or just being rendered unconscious. If the GM wants to do just a little palate cleanser, characters show up on Barsoom. No weapons, no gear, not knowing where you are. And we've given rules as to what happens when characters come to Barsoom. Like spellcasting, well, you don't really have access to spellcasting because those magical influence don't exist here. Cleric, well, your deity isn't here. But the transfer to Mars, much like John Carter, gives a lot of power to John, being able to leap incredible heights, having incredible strength. And there is a psychic phenomena on Mars as well, where John can read minds. All the species on Mars communicate at least partially telepathically. So there are powers that your spellcasters will pick up once they're there as well. So as far as rules go, we provide that translation, but it's made for a already ongoing campaign. If you want to drop those characters in, or if you just want to make brand new characters for this adventure in your system of choice, that could be done as well.
It's great. It seems like there's a lot of options to it. And then, physically what it's going to be like page count, it's going to be hardback, size of the book.
So It is going to be offered in. It is offered in both print and PDF on the Kickstarter. It's going to be the internal document. The words are going to be 32 pages with some potential handouts, like a few maps, that sort of things, past that page count. But 32 pages is our hard limit on it. That's in the Kickstarter as well. That's just with the agreement with the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate. So we pack a lot in there, and how we save space in the text is, again, we assume you've already got your table system of choice. So we give you guidelines in the text as to like what a DC value would be for those systems, but we try to stay away from system as much as possible. For instance, if we're describing a surprise situation, we'll say, handle this as surprise in the system of your choice, right? So the hard numbers come in the statistics, the creatures, the weapons, and the difficulty of doing things.
Realistically, a GM of just regular, medium level of skill could adapt this to any role-playing game they want to. They can take this to their favorite system, because we give you basically, everything that is convertible. And that's what most GMs do in the first place. They come home with a new game. First thing they do is start tinkering with it. And with that in mind, we make this very tinkerable.
That's great. And that's one of the good things about these systems too, is all sharing kind of that same, kind of tissue that all kind of works together. So did you guys have to like brush off your books and like, okay, I gotta get into the John Carter's mindset. Let me do some homework again. Let me refresh. Like this, I'm certain that had to have happened, right?
Yeah, I re-listened to, I should say. Audible has a great 7-book audio collection of the first 7 books of the John Carter. I just started re-listening to that, and there, I got to be honest, there are some things I didn't remember. The fact that John Carter isn't a normal human. In the opening passages of that first book, he talks about that he's a warrior. He's always been a warrior. He can only remember being a warrior, and he's been a warrior for at least 100 years, if not more. So he's not your standard base human to begin with. And there's little pieces that get sprinkled through the text that I completely missed as a young person reading this book.
Well, that's great. You're able to pull some more out of it. That's great. So the thing that I see about what's neat about this Kickstarter is that like you can listen to it, get in the mood, and then play it. And I think now that I'm looking at the Kickstarter and it's already been funded, it's done really well. Last couple of days going in here, I just think it's a neat kind of a mixture from maybe like the old days. Back in the TSR, kind of their early days. They would do some like was it Dragon Strike or something like that? Something that was kind of visual or whatever the case may be. I know they did some audio stuff as well. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, where you can get involved listening to it, so you can get in that John Carter kind of mood, and then you can turn around immediately and just start playing the game. I'm certain it's going to have some neat music involved in it too. And see, that's what I really like is, and that's what I'm seeing with this Kickstarter. I have the books. I admit that I have not read them all, but it was a time where it was like Appendix N. I'm going through Appendix N, and I'm just going to buy as many as if I come across them, I'm buying them, and I just happen to see the whole set. I got them. But it's like when I see something like this, I immediately think of just complete immersion in what it is, the IP. I want to hear the sounds, the music, and it seems like with the great talent that they have, that's going to be doing the voices. It seems like that's going to be kind of the theme: is you can listen to it and then play it, and I think that's pretty rare. So I can see how. Now, after we've done the talking about it, how that was a neat thing to do. And that, I'd love to see more stuff like that, especially with IPs. Is that, I'm certain that, like, I remember listening, like, especially like Planet of the Apes or something, they had a lot of like audio stuff, and even like viewfinders, anything you could find back in those days that was some sort of medium, the media that you could look at or listen to. And so it's neat to kind of return to that. With this Kickstarter. And what is the time frame looking like for this Kickstarter? Like, when will it be? Do you know when it's going to be done? When the role-playing game part will be done?
I don't know about the distribution end from the folks at the Kickstarter, like when they're going to send out PDFs and the print copies, if it's going to have to wait for like all your other, like the maps, the plushes and all that to be done and it's all shipped together or not. So that's on their end. I don't really know. But as far as our set of it goes, we're handing in the final manuscript for review at the end of this month. There's going to be some go back between the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate and Michael. He's kind of like the go between, just to make sure it fits in what they want to present as the lore of John Carter and make sure that their IP is protected. So there'll be a little bit of back and forth for that. But I mean, it's gonna be done at the end of this month as far as the manuscript goes. I'll do layout once we get the word back from Edgar Rice Burroughs as to anything that we need to change. I'll likely finish the layout at the end of next month. But again, I don't know delivery of the items. I don't know what the Kickstarter folks have planned for that. But this is not a project that like, oh, we just thought of it and we're, no, it's, again, I've already ran the adventure itself on my own podcast last Sunday, so it's completed and just needs some refining and just getting all the lawyerese right.
a lot of stuff
out.
Yeah, some stuff that can kind of bog some stuff down, but hopefully it'll
go. Yeah, and that's the big thing about intellectual properties. Like you were talking about, like you would love to be able to watch a movie or an audio and go in and play the game, right? And that is a thing that's going on now. Free League and Modifius, both great companies that have been buying up a lot of IPs. I mean, look at what we've seen recently. Terminator, the role-playing game. Just recently, Space, what is it? Space 1999? Yeah, just got picked up. This is a thing that's going on now. A lot of IPs from when we were kids. Jeff
Aliens,
and I,
Blade Runner.
Yeah, Aliens, Blade Runner.
I think it's a thing where they just needed to see that it can be done properly. Yes. I think, and this is just me kind of musing here, is I think D&D doesn't always work with IPs. And so maybe they did in the past, it didn't really work. And now we've got a lot of systems that are kind of broken the mold a little bit. They're kind of doing some different thing that might fit certain IPs better. And once they saw some success, I think now kind of the floodgates are open. And I think that's exciting time. And I think that's right where John Carter is going to fit in as well. Is there anything else that y'all would like to say about the Kickstarter, your involvement in it? Anything else?
Jeff, why don't you pick up? I've been talking a lot just mostly because was the primary go-between. So,
well, the thing is too is that I think part of it is the nostalgia of it all. Okay. Because like Bert mentioned, the Space 1999, the other types of intellectual properties that are taking those of us who grew up to it back to it. In addition to doing role-playing games, I'm a big guy for action figures, right? And there was a time when like you said, the Planet of the Apes, Mego did all the Planet of the Apes, and now Mego's come back and they're redoing all of these things because the customer base is out there. And that's one of the things that John Carter, the folks at the John Carter audiobook, they're thinking about is like, we have a great opportunity here with the role playing to get the people that actually grew up listening to John Carter, and hopefully with the advent of some of the additions going through the roof, getting new people in, So, and excuse my dog, please. But, but that's the thing that really excites me is that, yeah, this is a good time for it, and hopefully bringing in new people, because role playing isn't something you just kind of did and didn't tell anybody about. Now it's something that you sit around the table and talk about freely at work, at the bar or wherever, And it's like, you're a gamer? Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I haven't played in a while. Hey, we should get together. No problem. That kind of thing. And then as you start talking about gaming, before you know it, you're talking about the books you read, the movies you saw. I loved John Carter. I loved the movie John Carter. But a lot of people, just for some reason didn't catch it. Maybe this will give it some more life. I don't know. But the more, the better.
I
And
think
that's what excited me about it.
I think it harkens back to when it shared experience, right? Like, I definitely feel almost catered to in my 50s now, where like the IPs that I loved as a kid growing up are just being, they're out there hard at every format you can think of: new movies, new comics, new releases on DVD. But I've waited my life for role-playing games to hit the mainstream as it is. And honestly, I think it has a lot to do with shared experience, because you don't get that a lot anymore. Okay, what did it used to be in the 90s and early 2000s? Everyone would talk about the latest episode of Friends because everybody watched it. Everybody talked about the latest episode of MASH or whatever, right? It was a shared experience. It was on at the same time for everybody, barring, coastal differences. Um, and people watched it when it came on live. In an era where you have streaming, you have watch on demand. I don't think that experience really exists much anymore for the huge, like all the new Netflix or all the new Amazon things. Yes. So like there's a lot of people that watch it, but it's not the same. You're not watching it at the same time. You're not watching it on a schedule of release. You're not like anxiously waiting for the next one to come out. You've got the binge culture now, right? Well, RPGs are a shared space. How many folks that talk to people in conventions or just met a new gamer, especially if they're a little older, like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're talking about first edition, it's like, oh, do you remember the Tomb of Horrors? And you're like, oh yeah, I remember the Tomb of Horrors, and here's what happened to us. It's just a bonding experience. I think I love that it's coming back like that.
It's great. Yeah, I always tell people that role-playing games is a hard hobby. It's a challenging hobby. And just especially now in 2024, in our lives compared to when it started, the amount of entertainment we have and kind of the hurdles we have, both good and bad, in order to get around to playing a game is really what makes it such a challenging hobby. Plus, it's a personal hobby. You can always sit there and say, my team won or your team lost. But we're creating the team. We're becoming the team. We're doing all the actions of the team, and so that's very personal, and it's something that's unique in that we're writing the stories, we're controlling the characters, and you really can't find that anywhere. Even in video games, which is they have done some great jobs at some that are really open-ended. That's where you still have I beat that boss or I did that quest line. Yeah, we did it too. Maybe you did it a little bit differently or something, but now it's really no holds barred. Just role playing has always just been open, and it is challenging. You need people that are willing to show up. That's tough nowadays, and but it's great that a game like this can be out there and you can be immersed in it again, and maybe take you back to a time where it was some audio or video, and there was something to go along with it, and again be a part of something that is nostalgia, and it's very strong, obviously. And man, it doesn't get much older than John Carter of Mars, and I think that's always what's amazing for me, is to know how long ago he wrote these stories. It's absolutely amazing, especially when you look around the other people in that time, how few there were people writing it. And I can't remember now. I know it's 2024, but do y'all remember when he wrote these books?
Well, they started off as it wasn't John Carter of Mars to start with. It actually started off as a short story in one of the pulp magazines. Give me just a second.
It was all story.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of it now, but the original Under the Moons of Mars was the name of the short story that was written to begin with. It was serialized in one of the pulp magazines, and then from that it became, the campaign, if you will, of John Carter of Mars.
Right.
Yeah. So that was what time? When was that?
1890 something, maybe 70s, 80s. Can't remember.
1912 is when it came out in All Story magazine
Okay.
for that Under the Moons
Still,
of
it's
Mars.
from
Yeah.
over 100 years. I mean, it's just amazing. And of course, people, I've heard people, oh, the science isn't right. I was like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. It's having fun. You know what I mean? Without it, the restrictions of what he was able to write in his imagination, and they didn't know, they weren't up there. Heck, we haven't even been up there yet. So to Mars. So I just think it's interesting. But yeah, I appreciate y'all us coming together to talk about this great Kickstarter here. It is still, as of this video right now, it's still going, and you can be a part of it. What would you guys, like a closing thing you want to say about the industry, about yourselves, maybe something you're working on, something in the future, whatever it is that you'd like to tell people about the industry, role playing, whatever the case may be? I'll let you have it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Well, yeah, I do Dicey Tales. We're talking about pulp. Okay. And Dicey Tales is a game that I created this version of it. It's using the Barbarians of Lemuria rules engine, which is a rules engine that was put out by Simon Washburn, who was in the UK. But Dicey Tales takes all these different versions of pulp and gives it a codified uniform rule setting that kind of brings it all together. Let's see here. And Bert helped me put this together along with Peter Frayne, our artist. And here we go. This is Dicey Tales.
Seen
And
that.
it's on Amazon. So
That's great.
Dicey Tales on Amazon. And maybe you can support us.
Yeah, I'll throw some links up in the description down below. Of course, I'll have a link to the Kickstarter as well. And that way people, if they want to go check it out, hopefully they'll be able to click and go to it. And how about you, Bert? What would you like to close our little wrap session here with?
Well, I've got a podcast that's been running over 16 years. We do streaming, made the jump to streaming a few years ago. So we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, but go to BlueMagic, BLUMAGIK.com. Our Discord channel's on there. All of our social links are on there. Some of the things I'm working on now, Mac D'Amico, I'm editing and doing layout for a Dragon Slayer, which you did an overview on not too long ago. Module. It's pretty hefty. For Cannon Otter Studios, I'm working on Skin City. It is an Into the Odd or Mark of the Odd based game that where you play skeletons out to take over the world.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like the name of that too.
Other than that, I'm always doing work for David Beatty of Weird Frontiers, where we're going to do if you're familiar with DCCs, they have this little book that they put out that all the tables and all the rules that you keep looking up all the time out of that massive tome that is the DCC core book. We're going to do the same thing for Weird Frontiers, which is also a massive tome. And
Yes,
it would be very useful to have all the charts and tables together. So we're doing that.
Very useful.
For Reed, Shield of Faith Studios, we got 2 modules for the America setting that I'm in the middle of layout. Should be finishing 2. I've got a lot of irons in the fire right now. So
Sure do. Got a lot of plates in the air. So
I do.
That's great. Well, again, guys, I really appreciate you us getting together here to talk about this Kickstarter. I'm certain, I know for me, doing something on an IP that I really love is great. And so I'm only certain that you guys were just absolutely over the moon to know that you're working on an official John Carter of Mars product. That's just awesome. So there it is, guys. Keep watching the channel. I'm gonna have new videos for you soon. And thanks a lot, Bert and Jeff. Appreciate you being here. And I'll check you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.